got big dreams, I'ma do big things. Yeah, you see me on the big screen looking so clean. I don't move slow, I move fast right past.
Yo, what's going on YouTube? Samx Plays here, and today we're going to be talking about something that the community has been saying for months now. Generally, we see this conversation pop up with all live service games, but people always seem to check Steam charts and things like that. They see the numbers declining, as well as with the Season 1 launch not going so well. People are asking, is the First Descendant dying? Is it dead? You know, is the game in trouble? And the short answer to this question is no, it's not dying. However, if we look at the Steam charts here, we have gone from 264,000 players to now this is on Sunday that I'm recording this, so generally Sunday is going to be your biggest indicator for as far as players logged in, because generally that's when everybody has off work and school, right? So Sundays are the best day to look at player numbers. We have 30,184 players playing 16 minutes ago, and generally what people will do is they'll look at this number right here and they'll compare it to this number and they'll say, bro, we've lost 80% of our player base, right? The problem with this is you never want to compare this number to how stable a player base is going to be over the next 2 to 3 months, right? Because you're not ever in any game going to keep your launch number. You're never going to keep this number. I don't care what game it is. It's not going to happen. People are going to come in. A lot of content creators are going to come in hyping up the game. Everybody's going to play it. And then one of two things, either they play it and they say the grind isn't for me, and then they go play whatever else they're going to play, and or they'll play it and then they'll finish everything that they want to finish in the game and then they'll drop it and wait for a new patch, right? So if we look at the Season 1 launch right here, keep in mind this is only PC numbers on Steam, so this isn't going to be accounting for like console players. But if we look at August 29th, once the patch went live, we hit 62,000 players. So basically people were coming back to check out the Season 1 launch, and we already know that a lot of people did not like the puzzle mechanics. It does seem that now people are saying that they do like the puzzle mechanic. I don't know. It's like every week it's a different argument. It's people like it, they didn't like it, and then they said, why did the invasions get nerfed? I really like the invasions. I mean, the point is you're not going to keep everybody happy, but the majority of players did not like the invasions, which is why the devs ended up nerfing them. And especially if you didn't like puzzle mechanics, it just was not going to be your thing. On top of the Hailey grind, which a lot of people hated, especially the original one, because players do not like drip feed content, especially when you are doing it to unlock a character. Drip feed content almost never works. I mean, you do see it in games like gacha games and things like that, and those have been very successful, right? But generally in like live service games, drip feeding content is not that good. So a lot of players checked it out. They said, this isn't for me, you know, I'm gonna wait for the October 10th patch. And that's why we see the number here. It went up right as soon as Season 1 launched, and then it went back down. People saw the mechanics, they saw the Hailey grind, they were like, nah, I'm not doing that, right? And then, you know, we kind of steadily kept a player base of like, you know, 30 to 40,000 players, and the later and later we're getting, you know, the player base starts dropping because people are finishing the content. Now we are maintaining a steady player base. Like if we look here, we see dips, then it goes back up, then it dips, goes back up, right? So the point I'm trying to make with this is with live service games, people are just going to eat the content and then they're going to move on to the next thing. Either that, or if they don't like the content that was released, they will just simply not play it and move on to something else. Now, the devs have already admitted that their Season 1 timeline was not that great as far as the release schedule. We saw the weeks get combined, and for a Season 1 launch, it was extremely lackluster, which is why the devs are working on it. They made a statement like, hey, we're gonna do our best to like push out content, fix a lot of things that are wrong with the game that players don't like and things like that. And they have done a really good job with like the quality of life updates, like, and they have been very responsive, so I will give them kudos for that. But this is how I view it, and this is just my opinion on it. When you have a Season 1 launch, it has to be front loaded with content, because that is when you are going to have the most eyes on your game, right? That is your chance to keep player retention. If you are just dropping a little bit of content and also making it drip content and then telling people you have to wait like 7 weeks to actually get the good content, content. I don't think that's a good plan, but the devs already acknowledged that. They already know that, but I'm just giving you guys a reason of why the player base has kind of dwindled. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that TFT is dead or it's dying, right? Like, once the October 10th patch hits, a lot of that player base that left are going to come back because people are looking forward to the vendor, increased hard mode, and ultimate Freyna. That is what everybody wanted on the season 1 launch. So we will definitely see a lot of players returning for that, because if you've been playing every single day, you are probably running out of things to do by this point. If you've been playing since day 1, right, and you have kind of like unlocked all the ultimate descendants, you've leveled them up, you've leveled up the weapons that you want, right, you're probably running out of things to do. Now, granted, I have no life this game, and there is still things I can do in the game. You know, like I can max out all of my guns, I can farm 4 copies of each gun, things like that. But, you know, I've cleared all the bosses. I'm kind of at the point to where I kind of just like have fun doing like budget builds, and I'm just kind of logging in, doing invasions, making catalysts, things like that. Kind of just like upkeeping for the October 10th patch. But, you know, I'm also creating content on the game, so I'm like motivated to keep playing it, right? But I do think that we will get a lot of our player base back on the October 10th patch, and the devs have already said that they're hiring more people and they're going to be pushing out more content in the future, and that they're going to be looking at the release schedule for season 2. In my opinion, I think in season 2, they should just front load it with content, and then sure, we're going to have like a dry month and a half, but I think that's better to maintain player retention than drip feeding it over the course of like a month. Now, granted, they did buff Hailey and her drop rates and things like that, but the original grind was just really not that great. The drop rate for Hailey shards was like 20%. You would get 1 shard maybe per dungeon, and or you would do the invasion. They originally said it was supposed to take 12 days to unlock Hailey, but that was with perfect RNG. So basically, they did not have enough content to push out on August 29th. So that is why they time gated Hailey like that. Now, the reason why people got upset about that was because you can just pay $20, right, to unlock Hailey. So what they did was they ended up just upping her shard drop rates, and they also buffed the shards that you get from the invasions. So they did make it a lot easier to get her, but a lot of players that originally wanted to check out the season 1 launch, and they figured like they would have to grind amorph materials, right, for Hailey, and then they said, oh, it's going to take like 3 weeks to get this character. I'm not doing that, right? So I think the devs are still learning. The First Descendant is still like very young, right? It's only a couple like 2-3 months old, so they do have a long ways to go. They are learning and trying to keep up with what the player base wants and pushing out enough content and things like that. So I do think it'll get better like over time as we just naturally progress. I think once we see like season 2, season 3, we get the introduction of mega dungeons, things like that. Hopefully we get some like colossi out in the real world, just like roaming the world, like kind of like a, you know, in World of Warcraft, where you have like world bosses and they drop special loot if you go and clear them, things like that. There's a lot of cool things that the First Descendant can do to kind of make it a little bit better, you know, update the void bosses, you know, update the Colossus fights, make the maps a little bit more like desirable, because like right now it's just like we have like very bland Colossus maps. I think they'll change it in the future, but overall I still think the First Descendant has a lot to offer, and if you are finished with everything, you know, you can just kind of log in, do your dailies, throw in your catalyst, and log out and go play something else, right? But I did want to talk about why I think the devs ended up in the position that they ended in. So when you look at the originally intended design of the First Descendant, I'm talking on launch day, they suspected that players would take a lot longer to clear the content, because if you look at the original design, we had 5-minute outpost timers. You had to clear, I think it was three or four void fragments to fight 1 reactor boss. And then what they ended up doing was they buffed the outpost, right? They buffed it to a minute because everybody was just teleporting in and out of the map to reset the outpost, and that was extremely boring. Nobody liked doing that. So they buffed that down to a minute. They have now buffed the void fragments from 3 or 4 runs to now you do 1 run, and then you have enough shards to go fight that void reactor boss. They have introduced massive XP changes with the dungeons. You can level characters really fast now without doing the void reactor farm or the void fragment farm, you know, the Vespers one and the Viesa one in the fortress. So they have massively buffed and reduced the grind time for pretty much everything in the game. So that means that people are finishing the content at a much faster pace than originally intended, right? Because originally, if they were planning on 5-minute outpost timers and and void fragment runs and things like that, you would not finish the content nearly as fast. It would be a lot more tedious. Granted, I think it was good that they changed those things because no, like that's boring, right? Like spamming void fragments and spamming outposts just isn't fun. It's not engaging enough to want you to sit there for, 40, 50 hours to unlock a ultimate while you're waiting for the outpost to reset, things like that. So these are good changes. However, you have to supplement content, because if you are buffing everything and you're like making it way faster to get everything that you want, people are going to reach that end game faster and then not have anything to do. And then that's when the player count starts dropping off, and then they just go play something else because they have nothing to do. So between that and the invasion mechanics, with it just being a miss for a lot of people, I think that is why we are seeing like a decline in the player base. However, I do think that the October 10th patch will be huge. I think that's what everybody wanted. Most content creators have kind of moved on now to like the next game, so the First Descendant is also like less hyped up than it used to be on launch, right? But that's completely normal. Generally, you'll see a lot of content creators for the game. They'll go to the game on launch, they'll make a lot of videos on it because it's hot, right? And then once the game kind of starts dwindling in players, they'll move on to the next thing. So if you do have content creators that are still like consistently making content on the game, it's probably because they like the game, not because they're making like a crazy amount of money off the game, because those view numbers have dropped dramatically. But all in all, this is within normal range of live service games when you go on like a patch to patch basis, especially seasonal games. This is completely normal, and I think the First Descendant has like a pretty healthy, sustainable player base, and it'll only rise once we get to that October 10th patch. As I said, I think it's just people finishing what they want to finish, and they're just kind of waiting for that next patch to hit. So I don't think there's any cause for alarm. I don't think the game is dying. I don't think it's dead. I don't think it's going to die. I think the First Descendant is going to be around for quite a while, as long as the devs push out good content. They learn from their mistakes. They kind of figure out what the player base wants, what gamers want, and they kind of capitalize on that. Then, we'll start seeing those numbers go up, right? So I think we do have a good dev team. They are very transparent and open, and they have been very fast to fix whatever the community hated, and they have made a lot of quality of life adjustments. So I think that is really good. So we'll just have to see where the game goes, but I just kind of wanted to give my opinion on it, and I don't think the game is in like an unhealthy place at all. I think it's just natural. You saw this with Destiny, you saw it with Warframe. All of these other games, they have the same pattern. People finish things, they quit, and then they come back, right? It's going to be the same thing with the First Descendant. We're gonna have ups and downs, we're gonna have dips, but as long as the devs are communicative and then they push out content on a regular basis, I think it'll be totally fine. I think they've learned that drip feeding content isn't like the best strategy, especially for unlocking a character. I think they've learned that puzzle mechanics doesn't resonate with a lot of the player base. So we'll have to see what they do going forward, but I am hopeful for the game. I'm hopeful for the future on the game, and I'm still going to make content on the game. Granted, I might branch out and do some variety once I'm finished with everything, but as of right now, I feel like this is like a long-term game for me. I enjoy playing it. I enjoy grinding. So I feel like I'm going to be making content on this game for years to come. But, I might play like Warframe or Destiny or something like that in the future as like a variety, if I end up finishing everything I want to finish. But right now, I'm still having fun with the game. I'm still enjoying making videos. So anyways, guys, that's it. I feel like I've been yapping long enough. So I appreciate you guys for watching me, and thank you so much for all the support you've shown me. And I hope you guys have a great day and or night, depending on when you're watching. Y'all take care, and I hope y'all have a good one. Peace. Yo.